Hello everyone, my name is Pénélope Trahin. So as part of my PhD in archaeology, I'm working on motherhood and the cult of women who died in first childbirth and were deified. It's the subject of this presentation. So the data we have on this topic is mainly focused on the Mexica from ancient sources. The Mexica are the people settled in the Valley of Mexico, where they founded the city of Tenochtitlan and Tlatelolco in the 14th century. The remains of these two cities are present under the current city of Mexico. The Mexica conquered the Valley of Mexico and founded the Aztec Empire by allying with the Tepanecs and the Acolwa in the 1428. This empire ended with the Spanish conquest and their capital Tenochtitlan in 1521. They live in Mesoamerica, which is a cultural and geographical area that largely covered Mexico to parts of Central America in pre-Hispanic times. So the question is whether these women were also known by other Mesoamerican populations. What we know about the cult of this woman deified is essentially drawn from Mexican ethnohistorical sources, mostly written by Spanish religious who were among the first to travel to Mexico. They wanted to collect all the information available on the ancient Mexicans in order to convert them. For the drafting of their works and for the sake of accuracy, they got help from local population, as well as pictographic documents. However, it's sometimes difficult to know whether the Indian informants or the Spanish religious expressed themselves through these accounts. Moreover, the authors of these sources were all men who treated the subjects of women superficially. It can sometimes enlighten us on the archaeological material, whose understanding is also dependent on the context of discovery. This is also a problem that researchers have to deal with, since we often deal with these objects from looting. Finally, we can use studies carried out on the beliefs of current local communities, because these populations have not all completely disappeared, like the Mayas, for example. These communities have kept some of these traditions. There is a cultural and religious syncretism, which remains of pre-Hispanic beliefs to consider. The difficulty is knowing how to make the difference between what is pre-Hispanic and what comes from the contribution of Western cultures. It's necessary to be careful, but is an additional reading track. For some Mesoamericans, pregnancy was considered a battle to give birth. It was the hour of death. For the Mexica, if the battle against this, she came out victorious and gave birth to a child, then motherhood was her glory and her child her trophy. She was compared to an eagle warrior and a jaguar warrior. So it's the highest ranks in the military hierarchy. They were honored like Tonaleke, warriors who died in war or in the sacrificial stone. They represented death during the battle to get a new captive to offer to the gods. Human sacrifices were necessary for the survival of the world. So some data indicates that a woman had to die with her child in her womb because the child represented her opponent captured in the battlefield. These sources also tell us that these women were deified during her first childbirth. Why the first? Perhaps because the birth was a rite of passage. When she died, her husband had to bury her in the courtyard of the temple of the goddesses, where she had to watch over her body so that the young warriors and wizards could not seize it because certain parts of their body had the power to paralyze. The woman joined the sun in this race like the warrior who died in battle. These women were called princess, divine women. They descended on earth 5 days of the year of the divinatory calendar to frighten men and children. These 5 days were the calendar names, and the text tell us that there were 5 stone idols, which have been materially verified. And they had a main day of celebration, which was one serpent. To appease them, the population honored them, making offering during these days at the crossroad of neighborhoods and in the temples where they were honored. The question of the existence and location of a main temple still arises. Concerning their iconography, they are represented mainly among the Mexica in their way. They are kneeling with their hand forward, a skeletal face raising their teeth, twisted hair, bare chest, and a skirt with a belt, sometimes in the shape of a snake. So this is the general vision of the cult of this woman died in first childbirth. Thank you for your attention.